Week 10 Sunday in the books. We had walk-offs galore, game-winning field goals. We had blowouts. We had bad games that turned good games that turned bad games. We'll get into all of it right now. Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Big shout out to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And by the way, keep a lookout. I'll let everybody know when it's time, but coming to a smart television near you, a Locked On live streaming channel 24 hours a day, all of the Locked On shows. You can already find it, Locked On NFL Today, or Locked On Today, Locked On Sports Today, I think is the name officially of the channel. It's already streaming live on YouTube, 24 hours of all the Locked On shows, including Williamson and myself, multiple times appearing on your 24-hour stream. And we'll let you know when the time comes to check your smart televisions to have that at the ready whenever you need it for your 24-hour sports streams. And I'm so excited about all the things going on with the Locked On Network. Really excited to get into this week of football as well. Week 10 in the NFL. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by the Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase with Gametime. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's start with the Lions and one of those buzzer-beating W's that we saw and L's that we saw around the NFL in Week 10. It was 41-38 Lions-Chargers. It was like, okay, last team that gets the ball is going to win this football game, and that's how it went. The 7-2 Lions, Matt, beating the 4-5 Chargers. These two teams kind of going in the wrong direction, even though they were so evenly matched in this game, and it was probably the most fun game of Sunday just because, you know, if you like offense especially, probably not the 10-6 Patriots game with Patriots Colts. I would vote for the 41-38 Lions over Chargers game. Jared Goff, 333 yards passing, couple of touchdowns. They ran the ball well. Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs starting to look like that first round guy on that Los Angeles turf. He was kind of gliding on top of it. So what were your big takeaways from Lions Chargers in Week 10?
Yeah, really fun game. Fantasy bonanza. I mean, unless you started one of the defenses. I really hope we don't hear, boy, Justin Herbert can't win these big games. Like, I mean, he threw for 323 and 4 touchdowns, and he was awesome in this game. Yeah. I mean, he did everything he needed to do to win this game.
You should hope to win with 38 points of offense.
Yeah, get a stop once in a while, you know. But you're right. I mean, they're mirror images. There weren't a lot of penalties. There weren't a lot of turnovers. There weren't a lot of, you know, what ifs. It was just like two heavyweight offenses slugging it out, and the Lions got the draw at the 10th round or whatever. I mean, Goff and Herbert were almost each other's equals. Detroit ran the ball a little bit better, but some of that's just because Montgomery busted a 75-yarder. I thought Gibbs was actually even better than him. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's almost like a younger version of Keenan Allen, just slot route runner, tough, you know, and the two of them combined for well over 300 yards. So
that's actually, I like that comp a lot. I never put that one together. 11 catches for 175 and 2 tutties for Keenan Allen. This one, he just keeps going. And yeah, it's that guy who's in the slot. He's maybe not the most, you know, height, weight, speed, body, beautiful player, but tough, knows how to get open, can make tough catches, can give you a little something. And it can be a go-to weapon for your offense. We've seen Keenan Allen do it a long time in the NFL. Both guys were, you know, not drafted highly, but were both, you know, 3rd, 4th round picks and making good and can the offense, the passing game can run through those players as high target players. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Keenan Allen. I like that comp.
Yeah. But now, as you mentioned, Chargers are 4-5, Lions are 7-2. This might have been a very equal fight, but they're in way different neighborhoods in terms of their futures. And the Lions should moonwalk through this division and into the playoffs. The Chargers are in trouble.
Yeah, they might moonwalk to the 2 seed in the NFC at this point. And yeah, this division is theirs absolutely to lose. It's not the case for the Chargers. And it's funny, right before we went live with this podcast, I saw that Brandon Staley was trending on Twitter. I was like, oh, okay, did some news just drop and check it out? It's like, no, it's not the job, but his name is trending for a reason because there are people calling for it. So that's the kind of season this is heading for the Los Angeles Chargers right now.
And their defense was starting to show signs of life before this one too, but this was just two really good offenses, and we haven't seen enough of these type of games this year. You know what I mean? Like I thought it might be a dinosaur. I always think of that Rams Chiefs Monday nighter a couple years ago. It was like first one to 70 wins. Well, this was kind of that version.
Yeah, we finally got one of those.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about the Lions offensive line. That's really good too.
Oh yeah.
We forget to talk about the big uns up front sometimes. So let's just, that helps your offense running, passing. It helps everything. And the Lions have one of the best in the league.
Tremendously. Yep.
I love the way that, one more note on this one, and we got to get to some other games, but I love the way that Dan Campbell played it too, to eat the clock, to not give the ball back. I mean, it's just a smart way. It's like, look, we're going to end this. We're going to go for it late. We're not going to kick a longer field goal and let them have a chance. We're going to keep going and try to either put the ball in the end zone, or we're going to be the last team with the ball and kick the game-winning field goal. And it worked out phenomenally for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to double check one thing because from what I remember, there was 8 times these teams collectively went for it on 4th down, and they got 7 of the 8, 3 for 3 and 4 for 5. I just watching it live, like, man, they just keep going for it and getting it. But it's that same mindset. We're just going to trust our offense.
And probably not trust the defense all that much.
Not the way that game is going, right?
The way that game is going, for sure. So we both have some really interesting nuggets on the Ravens and Browns. So I want to wait on that just for a second here and go through some of these other games really quick. One of them was a huge blowout for the San Francisco 49ers. I really feel like the Jags-Niners, both their bye weeks came at the most, and for the Jaguars, the least opportune times. The Jaguars were reeling off 5 straight wins, were one of the hottest teams in the league. The 49ers were coming off 3 straight losses. They had injuries to, star players, Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel, and the quarterback in Brock Purdy was dealing with a concussion from just a couple of weeks ago. And so having the bye week when they did and regroup and then have the trade deadline the same week as their bye and bring in someone like Chase Young and just kind of hit the reset button a little bit, the 49ers came out and looked like that team that was nearly unbeatable in the first 5 weeks of the season. The 49ers improved to 6-3. Jaguars fall to 6-3 now. Niners go on the road at Jacksonville and just beat up on them. This game was felt like it was over from the first series of each team in the game in the first quarter. 34-3 was the final here. Yeah,
and really the box score tells a lot of the story. I mean, 4-0 turnover ratio, yards per play, 7-3 versus 4-1. I mean, they want to feature ATN. He didn't get the football all that much. Lawrence was under a lot of pressure. Time of possession was heavily unbalanced. I mean, again, like you said, I kind of tuned out in the second half. It was also going on while the Steelers were playing. But I mean, this thing was done before you know it, and Purdy was back to playing great. I mean, I guess the biggest story is McCaffrey didn't score for the first time in 100 years. Who knew?
Yeah, McCaffrey talked about it after the game. He's like, I appreciate because Kyle Shanahan, the game was over.
They were trying. Yeah,
we're going to pull people out of the game. Trent Williams was pulled, and Sam Darnold came in the game for Brock Purdy, and McCaffrey was pulled and Elijah Mitchell was running the ball. And then I think someone spoke in Kyle's ear and was like, hey, Chris McCaffrey could set the all-time record for, 18 straight games with a touchdown. Lenny Moore is now tied with Christian McCaffrey for 17 straight all-time. And so they put McCaffrey back in the game late. I don't know how Doug Peterson felt about that because they were already up 34-3, but they could not get that touchdown for McCaffrey, but everybody else scored on the team. Debo had one, and the Juszczyk had one. George Kittle had a long touchdown, which was the big knockout blow of the day, I think, in this one that really just let you know that the Jaguars weren't going to come back in this game. And who else had one? Ayuk had one in the first drive as well. So, spreading the ball around, 3 touchdown passes. Debo's was on the ground, almost 300 yards passing. You just really couldn't do no wrong, and 5 sacks for the 49ers defense. A bunch of people getting involved there. 2 turnovers, both caused by – or two of the turnovers caused by Bosa. One was a fumble, and one was he hit Trevor Lawrence that turned into a Talanoa Hufanga interception. So the Stars came out to play. The 49ers were well rested and just playing high energy football, which they weren't the last couple of weeks heading into their bye. So that looked like the 49ers team we saw to start the year. And the Jaguars are, I think, still a good football team. They might have run into a buzzsaw in this one.
Yeah, they got somebody nipping at their heels. What we're talking about in their division, though, too. So my last Nuggets, I don't know where I heard this, so this isn't a direct quote, but you mentioned Peterson. I guess Peterson and Shanahan, when they shake hands afterwards, Peterson was something along the lines of, hey, I would have done the same thing with McCaffrey. I'm cool with it. You might want to double check that for Locked On Niners.
I was already going live. Locked On 49ers is like the moment that I was like, I can't even wait because I got to go live in this one because the listeners were pretty amped up for that for a 34-3 win. All right, you mentioned the Texans. We got to talk about that division, and there's a lot of tie-ins with the way the Jags and Cincinnati Bengals weeks went, and the way the Texans are playing right now. Browns, Ravens as well. Tons more to get to. More walk-offs as well from week 10 next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. You should never have to worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event. It should be something that you're excited for. It's like, we get to go to the football game, right? Matt, you want to go see the Pittsburgh Penguins play, and you're like,
yeah,
well,
sure.
The puck drops in 30 minutes. Can I even get tickets? Of course you can at Gametime, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Last-minute killer deals, all-in prices. You can buy tickets up to an hour after the time that the event starts. View a picture view from your seat so you know exactly what you're getting. Best price guarantee at Gametime takes all of the guesswork out of buying tickets. And maybe my favorite aspect of Gametime is the lack of those hidden fees. All-in prices show your total upfront so you know what you're getting, and you know you're getting that great deal without the hidden fees, which is probably the worst thing that happens. You're all excited. You're like, okay, these tickets are $50. And you go, oh, wait, the $50 turned into $200 somehow when I'm checking out. How did that happen? So buy tickets in seconds, just a couple of taps with Gametime. And like I said, deals right up to the start of the event, even an hour after the event starts. And that Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. How about the Browns and Ravens? Let's go there. The Ravens have been one of the best teams in the NFL this year. And I want to start with, and we'll talk a little bit more about the game and the walk-off field goal for the Browns defeating the Ravens. This is fascinating. So coming into week 10, the Ravens spent less time trailing than any team in the league this year. They had trailed for less than a total of one half of football through 9 games. And that continued into week 10. So the Ravens, 28 minutes and 46 seconds is how long they've spent this season trailing in football games. And they led this game wire to wire and never trailed until the clock hit 0 and the field goal went through the uprights. So still, the Ravens have 28 minutes and 46 seconds after 10 weeks, but somehow they lost this football game, man.
Crazy. The nugget I have is from NFL Next Generation Stats, which is just as crazy. The Ravens are the third team in NFL history to lose a game despite holding 4 separate leads of 14 plus points in the same game. First time it's happened in almost 20 years. Craziness. I mean, the one thing I noticed was the Ravens had a lot of negative plays. The Browns have had very, very few, and the Browns ran the ball really well. And I've been doing the Browns play the Steelers next week, so I've been advanced scouting them. And they have a trend that's kind of bonkers for Cleveland, too. And it held up in this game, too. They ran 25 more plays than the Ravens, even despite losing a high percentage of the time. Over 34 minutes of time possession. And their play differential is off the charts. And they ran the ball really, really well. These are supposedly the 2 best defenses in the league. Maybe they still are, and they showed some of that, but there was, a non-offensive score for Cleveland that was huge. Baltimore is starting to get a reputation of blowing some leads. Like they're always winning the whole game, but this is the third game they've lost in a similar manner. I think the Colts was the other one, and the Steelers were definitely the other one, were their 3 losses. So it's a little disconcerting. We saw some good things from Keaton Mitchell. One of the stranger things in the whole league is we talked MVPs and stuff last week, and I think we both came to the conclusion it's Lamar's, at least for now, going into this week. But they consistently score like 31 points, and he gets you like 15 fantasy points. Like, how does that happen?
That's what I was just going to bring up.
Yeah,
And
it's bonkers.
I sat Lamar this week and played Jared Goff just because looking at the matchups and how things would go. And it was kind of the thing you had to do. It's hard to sit Lamar. But for a few weeks in a row now, he's not been and the way they ran the ball last week, it didn't matter. They put up 37 points, and I think he had less than 10 fantasy points, right? This week, he did have the touchdown pass to Odell Beckham. 40-yarder was his only catch of the game, so it was nice to see. I kind of forgot Odell. I saw it, and I was like, oh, Zay Flowers, look at that. I was like, oh, no, that's Odell Beckham. I forgot he was even there because he's done so little so far for the Baltimore Ravens. Zay Flowers was 5 for 73, but they almost need to get – well, it's hard because Keaton Mitchell had another long touchdown run, 39-yarder, second week in a row. He just looks like a really nice change up to Gus Edwards there. And look, he only got 3 carries. Maybe he needs a little bit more. Does the offense need to be more Lamar Jackson centric? They
put up 31 points. Things are going well. It's just an odd anomaly to me that his stats don't match his, value at this point.
There was the pick 6, right?
Yeah.
From Newsome in this one. A couple of interceptions for Lamar. He only completed 13 passes in this game for 223. So it was like kind of big plays or nothing for that Ravens offense, but both run and passing game. I don't know what to take about it. I think it's just, division opponents. It's that division. This is what happens. Browns now 6-3, Baltimore 7-3. We'll talk about the Steelers in a second, who are also 6-3 now.
It's nuts. And I think the last thing we do have to mention is Deshaun, he left very late in the first half with an ankle, and PJ Walker took the final snap from the Browns. They wanted to get him in the locker room as soon as possible. And he was struggling, as he has in a Browns uniform, for the first half, pretty seriously. But then he comes in the second half, no incompletions, easily his best half of football as a Brown, and his team wins. And right now he's getting evaluated for this ankle. He was in a boot after the game. But
and
Watson was really good.
I don't know if this was a play calling decision, if it was because his ankle was hampered. And Deshaun Watson's always been a kind of a big game hunter and throws a pretty deep ball and makes big plays with his arm. In the first half of the game, their average depth of target was over 16 yards, and it was disastrous, and things weren't going well. In the second half, they only threw 2 passes. Deshaun Watson only completed 2 passes beyond 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and those were both, I think, hooks. So, less than 10 yards with those 2. So it was a short passing game, and they played a lot better that way. So I think that might be an indicator. Run the ball, short passing is, I think, the way the Browns need to play, but I don't know if that's in Watson's DNA or if that was, because of the injury and it just happened to work, or if it was the coaching led decision where they're like, look, this is the way we have to play against a team like the Ravens and a defense like the Ravens, but maybe they should do that more often. But it was an interesting nugget.
More Njoku lately,
didn't for the Browns offense.
Yeah, a lot more Njoku lately. It was a very Elijah Moore, Njoku, Cooper centric passing game. I don't know if I believe this, but I heard some analysts this morning talking about the Ravens losing these late leads and saying, despite leading the league in sacks, they don't have the Bosa or Garrett or the closer, maybe that's the reason why. I don't know if I can buy that, though. It's basically been the best defense in the league, and they lead the league in sacks.
Yeah. So both these teams are going to be in it. They play. It's that division, right? Like, we might as well talk about the Steelers really quick here too, because watching the Steelers early on this year, there's no way I would have thought they would be 6-3. And even they're just kind of like playing to their opponents right now. It's not a beautiful win to barely squeak by the Green Bay Packers, who are 3-6. The Packers had an opportunity late. They were driving down, throw a late interception that sealed the win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Packers now 3-6, and they're not in a great spot, obviously. But the Steelers are 6-3, but they still feel like one of the worst 6-3 teams or 6-win teams in the NFL. And they are still looking up in their division despite being 6-3 right now.
It's bonkers. I mean, that division's crazy, of course. The Bengals are in trouble because they have 4 conference losses. Now, the Bengals are 0-2 in the conference. The Ravens and Browns are both 2-2 in the conference, and the Steelers are 2-0. I mean, not only are they 6-3
in the division, you mean?
2-0 in the division, yes.
Yeah.
Not only are they 6-3, they're 13-5 in their last 18 games, and they look terrible. I mean, they look terrible. I mean, I said some things on another local podcast about their back 7 with these couple linebacker injuries and Minka being out is the worst in the league. And the pass rush didn't bail them out as they often do in this game, and they still win. You know, Jordan Love is throwing to wide open guys without a lot of pressure on them, and they still win. But the key is, it sounds so rudimentary, but it is. I mean, Kenny Pickett had a pretty good game, and he throws for 126 yards. Like, he's the worst fantasy quarterback in the history of the world. And he doesn't turn the ball over. If he throws a pick, they lose. If he doesn't, they win. And they're back to running the ball. Like, they ran for over 200 yards in a very physical downhill behind Broderick Jones, beat your face, win at the line of scrimmage, Tomlin methodology, and it's working.
All right. The other team in that division, the Cincinnati Bengals, lose to the Houston Texans and superstar rookie quarterback CJ Stroud. We had another walk-off game with the Pats and the Cardinals. All that coming up to finish up this Week 10 Sunday wrap. It was a fun week of football around the NFL. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You want to get in on all the action like we saw on the football field in Week 10? You can find it at FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's right. That's $150 if your team wins that initial $5 money line bet. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. And the app is super easy to use. It's safe. Love the website. Love the app. It's so easy to find all of the bets you want, whether it's NFL football, college football. We've got NBA and NHL in full swing right now. Spreads, player props, over-unders. Build your own parlay, which is one of the funnest things I think you can do at FanDuel. Tons of sports. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to kick off this second half of the NFL season. Again, that is FanDuel.com/locked on. Earn that 150 extra bucks of bonus bets to play with. Again, FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So the Cincinnati Bengals were, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the hottest teams in the league, and a loss that's going to be, for the Bengals, a lot more difficult to overcome than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags are still in first place. The Cincinnati Bengals are now in fourth place in their division at 5-4. So let's start with the Bengals here, because the other huge story with the 30-27 win for the Texans is, look out. The 5-4 Texans, Matt, are not only just a team now with, okay, rebuilding, maybe they found their young quarterback too. Do we have to start worrying about this football team who were down a touchdown early and then boom, 10 points in the final 3 quarters to beat the Cincinnati Bengals? And even though CJ Stroud made some mistakes and threw an interception, 356 more passing yards, a near beautiful touchdown to Robert Woods that Woods was just out of bounds. I mean, CJ Stroud is playing phenomenally, and the Bengals were playing phenomenally and weren't terrible in this football game. But I don't know what to think about the Bengals. And is it time to take the Texans more seriously?
It is. So Cincy beat Buffalo last week, and from what I understand, that had the biggest playoff ramifications of any game that was played this year. And the reason is both of them have more losses than you would think, for as good as they are, as good as their quarterbacks are. And all their losses are AFC ones. So they're going to lose tons of tiebreakers, the Bills and Bengals. I keep lumping them together. And especially with Cincy losing another AFC game here, this is a crushing blow, because the Bills and Bengals have like the hardest schedule in the league going forward. I mean, they play the Chiefs, and both their divisions are tough. So it's time to be worried about the Bengals. And what I saw from this was, on paper, I think the biggest weakness of the Bengals is their offensive line. And I think that showed up in a basically playoff caliber game where they couldn't run the ball 1/10 as well as Houston could. They couldn't protect Burrow as well as Houston did. And Houston had tons of O-line injuries, but that unit's starting to shape up. Tunsil and those guys. And Cincinnati wasn't bad. I mean, they had 2 interceptions, wasn't great by Burrow, but overall he was phenomenal. Chase was a little compromised. There was no Higgins. But really the story is I'm burying the headline, is it doesn't matter if it's Noah Brown or Nico Collins or Schultz or Dell or whoever. It's the quarterback elevating the team. It's not, a good team bringing along a young guy and winning with him. They're winning because of him. And we talked about the Lions a minute ago, and everyone talks about the Lions offensive coordinator as a extremely bright young mind, future head coach. Well, I think Houston's might be as well.
Oh man, they might have hit just massive home runs, coach, quarterback, and we talk about it so much, Matt, that is the deciding factor in the NFL. If you've got the head coach quarterback combination, you are golden. You are in a great spot. And man, the Houston Texans might have had an all-timer offseason with D'Amico Ryans, and they've got still need more talent on that defensive side of the ball, but they're playing really well, keeping them in football games. And CJ Stroud looks nothing less than a superstar right now. He's doing very special things for a rookie. And this, don't want to crown him too soon, but Texans fans have to be extremely excited. And seeing this team at 5-4 right now, and beating a team like the Cincinnati Bengals at this point in the season, it's hard not to be excited. And this is they're in the playoff conversation, whether you want to believe or not, in this upstart team. So really fun story with the Houston Texans. You mentioned Noah Brown. I mean, and CJ Stroud's been a star maker. Nico Collins, now he's hurt. So Noah Brown, guess what? You're up 7 catches, 172 yards. How about this?
And he had the Nico roll. Noah, you're Nico today. You know?
Here you go. Tank Dell, we've seen, rookie big plays, smallest tank in the history of mankind. But he's looking like a very good rookie. Really good player, have a good quarterback throwing you the football. We've talked about Matthew Stafford being sort of that star maker at quarterback, and with Puka Nacua now being the latest with Matthew Stafford. And, there might be a similar deal with CJ Stroud. Hopefully Stroud wins a lot more games than Stafford did when early in his career with the Lions. But a note on Noah Brown. And so the last 3 weeks of the NFL season, we just talked about, we didn't mention Amari Cooper, and I wanted to save that from the Browns game. Amari Cooper is 3rd. Noah Brown is 2nd. CeeDee Lamb is 1st in receiving yards in the last 3 weeks. They were all teammates together just a couple of years ago with the Cowboys.
Wouldn't have never put 2 and 2 together on that. Interesting. 2 of them left town.
So Texans playoffs?
Well, I'm sure all of our non-Steeler listeners would much rather see Stroud and the Texans than Pittsburgh or a team like that that's got, I mean, what I think is interesting, and it's a little putting the cart above the horse, is Burrow's better than Stroud. If we do quarterback ranks, we're going to have Burrow higher than Stroud. But if it's a month from now, might Stroud be in that Herbert Burrow tier? I mean, could he be not far off Mahomes at the end of the season if we do Sandoz quarterback tiers? I mean, what he's doing is unbelievable.
That's his trajectory.
Yes,
but we're gonna not put him there yet. But that's the trajectory right now.
It really is.
And I think you used the correct word, the elevation that's happening right now.
Yeah,
he's elevating his football team. So phenomenal story with the Texans. We'll see if they can keep that going. You mentioned the Bills a minute ago, 5-4. They're playing Monday night. They better win this football game against the Broncos. They are at home and they're favored by a touchdown there. Some other notes. We got to run through these. Some really good football games out there. One of them that was not a great football game was the Cowboys. I mentioned CeeDee Lamb. He's still going crazy.
They bad.
Brandon Cooks. I mean, Dak Prescott went nuts. 400 passing yards in this one, 4 touchdowns. And of course, Tommy DeVito. Really nice story. It wasn't to be for him for the New York Giants, who fall to 2-8. 49-17. I don't know what else needs to be said about that one. The Cowboys improving to 6-3.
The Giants are as bad as any team I've seen. I mean, I don't think they're going to win another game.
But this one, Kyler Murray comes back, and guess what? 1-0 now for the Arizona Cardinals this year. Talking about late wins in the Arizona Cardinals, 25-23 victory over the Atlanta Falcons. The Cards win their 2nd game of the year, which is probably not great long-term, to be honest with you, except for just seeing Kyler Murray play well and be tough to play against and making some plays with his legs and looking 100%, which was pretty important to see for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. But the Cardinals no longer have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. The season ended today. It would be that Carolina pick that the Bears own. So 2-8 Cardinals jump down to, I think, the number 3 pick in the draft. And the Falcons now fall to 4-6 on a losing streak.
Yeah, the Falcons, Heineke got hurt. It wasn't all that much different, but I do think this was a good game. It's a fun game. What was interesting to me is I think Arizona, unlike the Giants, will win some games. We kind of predicted that their offense might be middle of the road, which is a big jump, and I think that's coming around. He looked rusty as a passer, but not as an athlete as a runner. So he'll be fine,
And was just clearly more talented than the other guys that the Cardinals have had. It's like it's when you have that much talent at quarterback, the difference making situations. So as long as as he's right, that's a tough thing for defenses to go against. Trey McBride, by the way, is he potentially a fit with Murray as a big time fantasy tight end? He made an amazing catch in this game, 8 for 131 for Trey McBride.
He's really turned into their number 1 receiver. I mean, target share, all that stuff. It just makes me further think, we'll see one of them tonight. Young tight ends, you can't use them for fantasy. I think that's now something we can bury. Laporta and Kincaid and McBride in his second season didn't play a ton as a rookie. Tight ends come in like receivers now.
And apologies, we're not going to get to every game here because we don't have time.
We've got more
really good ones, and we've got the mailbag later in the week as well. If you want us to dive more into any subjects, hit us up on Twitter at BDPeacock, at Williamson NFL, or in the YouTube comments. Another game-winning field goal. Seattle Seahawks hold on to beat the Washington Commanders 29-26. The Seahawks now 6-3 in a really good spot for their playoff push, but behind the San Francisco 49ers in the division, even though those teams are now tight with their records. And then the Washington Commanders, Sam Howell, I thought played really well and has been playing pretty well, but they did fall short here. And I think we see where the direction this team is going is maybe not immediate. There's a long view happening right now with the Commanders, and so they're going to have to add a lot of stuff, but they're still a competitive team. And I like the direction that Howell's going. I don't know if he's necessarily the answer, but he's proven he can at least be a bottom half of the league NFL starter, I think, so far. Commanders now 4-6.
Yeah, this was a really competitive game as well. A lot of them went down to the wire, as you mentioned. A lot more points this week, which was fun. Cowboys dropped 49. We talked about the Chargers and Lions, and this one was a good offensive battle. And I wonder, might Bieniemy be the head coach next year and Howell the quarterback? See how that looks,
Interesting. Well, if they can't swing a trade for Bill Belichick, maybe. That'd be the
right. The offense is doing good stuff.
Has Howell earned another year? Because at 4-6, they're not going to be drafting Drake May or Caleb Williams unless they make some huge move in the draft to move up. It's looking like at this point, they've got too many wins already. Probably there's going to be multiple teams under 4 wins this year. So yeah, interesting.
Draft O-line and see how it goes,
Yep. Seahawks are a playoff team. Commanders have a really interesting offseason to come. I think those are
they do.
The thoughts with those two football teams. Brian Robinson Jr., big day. Kenny Walker, big day. Multiple facets of the game. They just feed him. He's a workhorse. Geno Smith had a nice one too after some kind of up and down games earlier this year as a passer. 369 passing yards for Geno Smith. I'm glad I didn't set my alarm for 6:30 Pacific time to watch Colts Patriots. I was out of town celebrating my wife's birthday too. So I did turn it on when I got up, and it was the third quarter, and I saw a 7-3 score, and I said, I'm glad I did not try to get up early and watch this football game. And the end of the game was just as sad as the beginning of it.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I did get up, obviously. I mean, not like it was super early here on the East Coast, but it was exactly what you thought. I mean, it was a slog. Mac Jones got pulled at the very end, and they only scored 3 points against the Colts. I mean, so times are not good for the Patriots at all. They could end up drafting Drake May or somebody like that.
The Patriots are in this situation. The Patriots are the tiebreaker strength of schedule is really going to hurt the Patriots because they're going to be drafting behind probably any teams that they have the same amount of losses as. So, they might have the same amount of losses as the teams that have the first and second picks in the draft, but they won't have the first or second pick. So they might have to move up if they want one of those two quarterbacks. So that's like a little extra just knife in the side for Patriots fans who it looks like they're just going to have to endure that type of season. That this is a bad team.
Period. It's a bad team. I mean, hey, Marvin Harrison wouldn't look bad there either. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they could use.
Yeah, there'll be talent. It'll be offensive tackle, maybe a pass rusher. There's going to be a good player, and it's looking like they're going to be in the top 5 or Who knows? Maybe even number one. Some other teams have to win some games for that to happen for the Patriots. Speaking of bad games,
I doubt they go 2-15 though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it. They're bad. They're terrible.
They're really bad. They're slow.
You can't even hang your hat on Belichick. Getting some of those Belichickian wins like he has the last few years. It's just all falling apart, and all they do during the telecast is show, the ownership booth, and the Crafts are like shaking their heads and talking under their breath, and people are trying to break down what they're saying. It's like lip readers are like, what did he just say? So it's all bad right now in New England. It's pretty bad for both the Jets and the Raiders. The Raiders did do at least have a little bit of life. They're smoking cigars, winning some games here with interim and maybe full-time head coach Antonio Pierce. 5-5 Raiders. Look out. 16-12 over the 4-5 now New York Jets.
Yeah, not the ideal nightcap for a long day of quadruple header, but
yeah,
I think this buries the Jets, don't you think? I mean, the Raiders still have their head above water slightly, but I think this buries the Jets.
And I don't know how long that bump is going to last for the Raiders, but the interim bump again has done some things, and you like the way they're playing. But this is one of those games that was close and still not a good game. There were some other quote unquote bad games this week that were more fun, and this one was not super fun, and one that should have been flexed out of primetime in my opinion.
No question. And Viking Saints, I think, is the last one we haven't talked about, and that one was more fun. At least we saw Winston at the end. Very Winston-esque, like perfect example is Chris Olave had no catches going into the half until Winston comes in. Then he has a huge game and a great touchdown, and Winston throws a terrible pick as well. Vikings are good and well coached and hung on though. Carr's injured. I don't know if he's going to play next week.
Bucks over Titans. Buccaneers 4-5. It's gonna be another one of those seasons in the NFC South. Who's gonna be the team that can get to 500 maybe? And it's looking like the Saints are ahead, even though they lost to the Vikings 27-19. Just trying to hit all the scores here, but before we go, one quick note again, actually on the Jets. Zach Wilson made a couple plays. You're like, oh, that's exciting. And then the Hail Mary at the end, almost had it. Garrett Wilson was flying. He was dunk contest height and Conklin hand on it, or they might have had that one and won that football game. But yeah, Zach Wilson's too much bad still, even though there's some, he's making some Holmesian looking no looks out there at times too.
Yep. And I did want to throw one more thing about Titans Bucks. Mike Evans is still a great player. We talked about Keenan Allen to open the show. I mean, those two are about the same age. He could even had a bigger day. And should not surprise anyone, but the Titans O-line is horrific. I wouldn't be too hard on Levis or any of those guys for this performance. They don't block a soul.
That is week 10 of the NFL season. If you want us to dive into any game specifically or any subjects in further detail, hit us up on the mailbag. We were going to come back tomorrow, take a peek at the power rankings as well after this week. Some more thoughts from week 10 of the NFL season before we flip the page to week 11 as well. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Peacock and Williamson back tomorrow right here. Talk to you then.